Good morning. Live from the campus of the United States Sports Academy in Daphne, Alabama. This is Sports Talk. I'm Arthur Ogden, moderator and host for the Sports Talk, which is a weekly presentation of the United States Sports Academy's Communications Department. Each week here on Sports Talk, we try to engage a timely topic, and nothing could be more timely than what's happening in college football. Last Sunday, gentlemen, we got the Final Four. And let me introduce the rest of the panel. On my right and your left is Dr. Steve Butler, Dean of Academic Affairs. To my left, your right, is Dr. Fred Cromartie, who's the Director of Doctoral Studies. So now we've got Alabama seeded number 1, Oregon seeded number 2, Florida State seeded number 3, and Ohio State seeded number 4. That means that in the first round, on New Year's Day, Auburn is going to play Ohio State in the Sugar Bowl.
Excuse me?
That'll be Alabama.
Alabama.
Who did I say?
Auburn.
Well, same thing.
Just corrected me.
Alabama is going to fill in for Auburn, playing against Ohio State in the
Nice
Sugar
phone
Bowl.
call.
And Oregon's going to be playing Florida State in the Rose Bowl. The winners of those two games will face off at the AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, on the 12th of January to play for the national championship game. Now, ever since these Final Four rankings came out and naming who's going to play for the national championship, there's been quite a lot of furor. The Baylor coach has been terribly upset, and Baylor even hired a public relations firm to try to sway some opinion, I suppose. And ESPN analyst Joey Galloway was very vocal in demanding an explanation for TCU's drop from number 3 on Tuesday to number 6 on Sunday. So all this has given rise to a national discussion, which we're going to try to engage this morning. And so, gentlemen, how do they get it right? How do they get it wrong? Fred?
Well, it's like I've been saying all along. It's not a situation of them getting it right or wrong, because we still don't have all of the details in terms of how they formulated all of this and came up with all the insight. Everything was behind closed doors. But if you look at it in retrospective, it's played out just like I said. If you look at it, all of the conferences that are represented are those conferences that travel very well. And it's about the pot of gold. They're the money, makers.
And they also, all those conferences also have championship games.
Yeah, well, we boil it all down to a championship game. Is that what ultimately, is that what it comes out to be? Because again, there's conflicting information that has come out from week to week to week to week. So I commend them for what they have done. They finally got us to a point where we've got 4 teams to start from to start with, and now we can only continue to try to improve it. But as I heard one analyst say, this is not very different from the old system that we had, because this is the way that the old system would have had it.
Well, do you agree with what he said, Steve?
Well, I think Chris Fowler on game day last Saturday kind of summed it up perfectly when he said, there is no right answer, there's just a best answer. Mm-hmm. And I think actually the way the games played out over the weekend, especially championship games, I think it became pretty easy for them. I kind of agree with Joey Galloway and some of his assertions. They taught Kurt Herbstreit just defended the panel, saying that they've been fluid all year, and you got to get out of the mindset of, if you're number 1 and you never lose, you always stay number 1.
The old poll mentality.
But still, that there's something to be said about being number 3, winning 55-3, and falling 3 spots to number 6. I can see it. That's the one thing that Joey Galloway said that makes sense to me, and I can see why TCU would be upset. To be honest with you, I was kind of nervous leading up to the show on Sunday evening that they were going to drop Florida State out, and I think if they would have done that, it would have been unbelievable pandemonium.
Well, if Florida State had lost, they would have dropped
Oh,
them
yeah,
out.
they would have
would have
lost.
dropped them out.
It led back to the age-old question that we had with the previous system. Somebody's always going to be Cinderella's system, and they get left out. And this time we saw that it was twins. If Baylor and TCU are upset, they should be upset with the commissioner of the Big 12. They should have already added another school so that they could have that conference championship.
Well, they need to. They don't have 11. They need to
Yeah.
add 2. They need to have 4 or 12. But you see, the thing of it is, you're right about their conference is all screwed up. But from the static view of this year only, their advertisements. If you look at all their advertisements, all their billboards, and all the series of the coaches come on and say we're this, this, and this. We play each other round robin for one true champion. And then to arbitrarily come out and announce at the end they're co-champions runs counter to the bylaws of the conference. So it was somewhat hypocritical.
Exactly.
And so they've got to do something about it. What do you think, guys, is the most egregious problem with the committee and how they conducted the weekly polls?
I think that the fluidity that they bragged about, I think was more of indecisiveness and wishy-washiness on their part. I don't think teams move up and down that much normally. I think that one of the points that Art Briles made was that he knew that they were in trouble when Archie Manning had to withdraw because he actually did the research, and every single person on the committee was born in the North, except for Condoleezza Rice, so I didn't know he was born in Alabama, but that's what Art Briles said, so I'm gonna take his word for it.
She was born in Alabama.
She's from Birmingham.
But she's the only one on the committee who was not born in the North. And he thought that was a factor in it. I'm not sure if that was a factor, but I think the most egregious thing, to answer your question in my mind, is the cloak and dagger aspect of it, doing it all secretly.
But the NCAA basketball committee does it that way, and nobody complains. They are all behind closed doors. We don't have access to them.
Well, I wouldn't say
baseball, when they do baseball, it's the same thing.
I wouldn't say nobody complains
True.
in basketball, but like Fred said earlier, this year number 5 is going to be upset when eventually they go to 8, and I think 8 is as far as they're going to go, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Number 9 is going to be upset. But I think the more teams you have, the less argument that is you have. When we've talked about this all year, I've said it many times. I think the number 1 factor should be conference champions, and we ended up with 4 conference champions from the 4 biggest conferences.
Mm-hmm.
So from that respect, I do think they got it right.
I think their biggest problem, because we've already alluded to the fact that when they pick baseball, when they pick basketball, Matt, is still behind closed doors. But the one factor that is not associated with baseball, basketball, and the other sports in terms of the selection process is we don't see ESPN behind it. We know that they support it, they're there, but it's not up front like it always was. There's no show leading up to it each and every week that.
Wait a minute, Fred. That's a function. That's not a function of ESPN. That's a function of how they wanted to set it up. I think it was a mistake for them to have weekly poll releases. I think they just should have met once, like the NCAA committee does, and then make their decisions. But they wanted to promote this all along.
Yeah, and they made it marketable through ESPN.
Yeah.
That was a mistake.
Well, maybe it was a mistake, but look at the interest and look at the discussion that's going on.
I understand. They generated all the interest that they wanted to, but once again, the factor points back to there's undue influence from an entity, and it was ESPN.
Joe Lenardi, who does they call him the bracketologist for NCAA basketball tournament. I heard him on the radio a few days ago saying that he thought he needs to have a weekly show like that and give him his final 64 every week and change it every week because it was so popular. Yeah. It was at least they didn't start at the beginning of the season. I think.
Well,
they wanted to.
No, they didn't. They wanted to follow that formula. BCS never came out until halfway through the season with their first polls.
Yeah.
And I think one of the big things that we haven't discussed here yet was the biggest problem most people had with the BCS was that it depended on computers and they wanted more human interaction. Well, they got it. They got it.
Got all the human interaction you wanted.
Right, with all the human frailties and foibles that can be associated with it. And so I don't understand. Bryles, I think, is really, really off the wall with his comments about where people are born and so forth. He's just, and for him to intimate that we got Alabama in here, you know, and you got Florida State in here. Well, aren't they from the South also? So half the teams are from the South. And I don't know. I think that maybe he fell off the roof of the Alamo too many times, but to make some kind of comment like that doesn't make any sense. And that's too bad.
You got to give Coach Bryles an opportunity to voice his opinion, which that's exactly what they
but
did.
I mean, he doesn't have to look like an ass when he voices it. And he looked like an ass when he said that.
I'm not so sure. I think he made himself, in the eyes of his players, look as if he was standing up for them and their conference. And no matter how you look at it, those players are behind him.
Well, what about, okay, so what if some of those players are from up north? I mean, that's just an inflammatory, stupid thing for him to say. Really, you know, fine for to stick up the team, but, oh, they're not. They're from the north. Well, let's suppose I got 5 players on the team that are stars from the north. That's just a stupid thing for him to say. Now,
but then again, there's always going to be conspiracy theorists.
And he's infected. Okay, do you think? And you quoted that Ohio State football player quarterback, and he said Herbstreit, and he said the man out there right, but they got the 4 best. Do you agree? We got the 4 best teams.
Well, no, I don't, because purely when you look at their records and the competition, I mean, there's all kinds of factors in play. I hate to say it, but the fact of the matter is that TCU and Baylor actually played a better schedule than Ohio State.
Yeah,
and there are plenty of people that have voiced that.
I'm not sure I agree with that because there's 123 Division I school football programs,
like that, yeah.
And Baylor's non-conference schedule was number 123. It was the worst in the entire country, and that's the one thing you have control of. I think that Florida State, I think, did the best job. Oklahoma State was down a little bit this year, but when they, these things, people need to understand they don't schedule these things in August.
They schedule years in advance.
And for them to play Oklahoma State, Notre Dame, and Florida the intent was very high to play those 3 schools out of conference. They did play Citadel, but the main reason they played the Citadel was because they anticipated they were going to play Georgia Tech in the championship game. They wanted to have a game.
They want to see what Johnson's offense was like, yeah. And I think that was pretty smart. Okay, we're winding down, but I want to know you gentlemen's opinions. Who looked the worst in this entire process? Was it the committee itself? Was it Jeff Long when he got up there and stumbled through all of his interviews? Was it Coach Bryles? Was it Jimbo Fisher? Who, in your opinion, looked the worst in this entire process? Steve?
I have to go with Jeff Long because he was the face of the committee, and I thought sometimes his explanations just didn't make sense, and I thought that it seemed to me that the rules changed every week of what was important, what wasn't important, and he may have just been the messenger, and we don't want to shoot the messenger, but he was the one that went out there every week and tried to explain why the rules had changed from 7 days ago, or in this case, 5 days ago, from Tuesday to Sunday. So I would go with Jeff Long.
Fred?
That's really a tough one. I'm going to say the process itself. I don't think that there was no real script to follow. This is the first time that they had done any of this. I believe that Jeff Long did flounder a bit and trying to explain things, and it changed and all this good stuff. But I think the overall makeup of this whole committee structure and everything, and then you had Archie Manning that fell out because he had some other things to tend to that would preclude him from doing that. And he couldn't travel and all that good stuff. So I think from the very beginning, it didn't play out the way that everyone wanted to. So, okay, we've gotten through this first year trial. We've had some bumps along the way. We stumbled, we stubbed our toe. Is it going to get any better? No one really knows that. And I think it's going to be sort of the same thing next year.
It probably will, but let me ask you this one final question. Toss up, either one of you can grab it. Does this whole process this year, given the fact that it has drummed up an awful lot more activity and support and discussions around the water coolers around the nation, do you think this is going to open the door for the next 4 teams that come in and we have an 8-team playoff? I mean, I know it's what you guys want.
Yeah, I really do. I think so. The other argument is that it is destroyed the bowl system as we know it. Well, I don't think that's the case itself. True. Because last year we had 32 bowls. How many bowls do we have this year? 40 bowls. So we've added bowl games. I just think that it's going to continue. We're going to have a playoff. We're going to get to the point where we have 8 teams. I think the ultimate end goal is to have 16 because that's really how they want to see it play out. Because again, once that money is a part of the mix, which it is now, it's only going to get greater. And I think that everybody is relying on college football still just yet. There are not many of us that have decided that concussions are way too important for us to continue to play the game. So I still think that it's a very, very popular game, and it's going to continue to be a situation where both the bowl and the playoff system are going to, bowl games and the playoff system are going to compete with one another.
How many teams do they have in the Division I AA playoff now? 24?
24.
24. I think the answer to your question is yes. I think we're headed to 8. I'm not sure if 16 is the right number. I think if we go to 16, we'll have to take away a couple regular season games.
Well, I'm for that. And I heard a couple of arguments yesterday on the radio, and I just want to add this. They talk about, well, there's so many games, it's such a long season. Okay. I think you do 2 things. Number 1, cut them back to 10 or 11 regular season games. So let's suppose we've got 16 teams. That's only 3 additional games after 11. That's 14. Most of them are playing 14 now. What about player durability? Okay. Right now at FBS schools, they can offer 25 scholarships a year, but are not allowed to have more than a total of 85, which presents problems with what they talk about the graduation rates. There's a built-in 15% attrition anyway. My solution would be twofold. Number 1, cut the regular season back to 10 or 11 games. And then instead of saying, okay, you lose those 15 extra scholarships over a period of 4 years, no, you may have a maximum only of 100 on scholarship. One guy argued with me and was on the radio and said, well, that'll dilute the talent. I said, no, it won't dilute the talent. It will protect the talent. And so those are just some things to think about. We've got to go now because we've got our signal up on our computer. We want to thank you for joining us. Enjoy the bowl games. They start in 2 weeks, a week from this Saturday, with
December 20th.
December 20th. And it starts at 10 o'clock Central Time, by the way, the R+L Carriers New Orleans Bowl with Nevada versus Louisiana Lafayette. We want to thank you for continuing with us throughout the year and sending in your ideas to sportstalk@usssa.edu. This is Arthur Ogden for Deans Butler and Cromartie, wishing you a great day in sport.
Happy holidays.